Without my knowledge, he took a video of us while we were being intimate.
But I am a man.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
Well, I only have one testicle, so I'm like half a man, if that's how you really do it.
Rory, you would like to be a spare tire?
Do I regret bringing Rory to South Africa? No, I do not.
Woe unto him if he runs his mouth like to a Texan the way he ran his mouth. Parts of him would be found. Parts.
No, you guys are not listening. You guys are actually attacking him.
TLC and the 90 Day producers really went out of their way to find the scummiest and the dumbest batch of people for B90. I am watching these tell-alls and I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. And also, Niles, I am looking at you. I stood by you when crusty Adnan tried to hijack your segment, only for you to go ahead and do the same thing in part 3 to Loren. The show is a constant demonstration of hypocrisy. Let's get into it. Hi guys, welcome back to Nikki Faces Reality. We are here to discuss 90 Day Fiancé before the 90 Days to Tell All Part 3. I guess they realized that they didn't in fact have enough material for 4 parts, so this part 3 was only an hour long. Then they went straight into pillow talk, which was interesting, but still, it was juicy. I can't wait to get into it with you. As always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're new here. And let's dive right in. We pick up right where we left off with Adnan and Niles. So these two are in this heated argument. They are face to face and security steps between them. Of course, we knew that it was never going to get physical on camera. Probably for the best. And Adnan feels the need to repeat to Niles, "It is not nice to meet you." Sir, you are not royalty. No one cares whether you had a good time or not. To which Niles is like, yeah, you better pray I never see you out in these streets. And Adnan laughs in his face. And backstage, Niles is like, I hope he doesn't think that he can pull that on people in Texas because he will end up mangled. And I was like, now let's move on to what I think is the meat of this episode. It's the Vanja segment where Bozo is back and then they just bring out Josko. There isn't much of like a lead up. They're just like, yeah, you guys haven't met each other? Hi, meet Vanja's 2 boyfriends. It is super awkward, but super respectful for the most part. Messy Sean immediately is like, so Josko, what did you think about the way that Bozo handled his relationship with Vanja? To which Josko is sticking to his story of, you know, it was strange because she's so amazing to pull that move on her after 8 months of dating. And interestingly enough, Bozo is like, yeah, like she didn't deserve that. He seems really apologetic. And I just want to call out that he didn't seem this sincere and apologetic when talking to Vanja directly. Every time he talks to Vanja, it's always like a series of excuses, trying to like rewrite the story that like the feelings were one-sided. And personally, I really do believe that they did have something real online, but sometimes people embellish when they're online, and I think that's what Bozo did. And seeing her face to face, knowing that he's jobless, knowing that he lives with his parents, knowing that she has 4 jobs, knowing that personality wise, maybe like it was nice electronically, but like she's too much in person. Instead of just being like, hey, my feelings changed, he told Vanja, oh, well, I never had these feelings. Like that wasn't fair to her. So I agree with that. I just think that it was so interesting that he was immediately apologetic when a man approached him about it, particularly a man of his own, like, side of the woods. So Josko's like, yeah, Vanja's not someone that you meet, you know, every day in your life. She's so special. Then they pivot to the scene where Vanja recounts how Josko broke up with her. That was so messed up. But he has to watch her back talking about her POV of their breakup, and he, for the most part, he looks like a stone. He's very stoic, but if you really like zone into his facial expressions, they're subtle, but he seems annoyed. Joshko's perspective of it, he's like, we talked twice a day, every day, and she would never ask about my kid. And he said there was a point where the communication dwindled because his child got sick. I am not a parent. However, in my life, I have many little ones, and I know what it's like when they are sick. The whole home is in quarantine. That's all you can focus on. They are super needy because obviously, like, they can't fend for themselves. Josko as a single dad, I can only imagine what it was like. Because he was tending to his kid, he didn't have the time to just be on the phone just asking Vanja about her day. I totally get that. And Vanja did tell us that when that happened, she was like, oh, well, I want to set the expectation that we need to keep talking on the phone because this is all we have. And I totally get that in long distance relationships. But when there's a kid in the mix, like, you are not the priority. I'm very sorry to say. And that is why you really have to, like, before you venture in relationships with people with kids, because, like, you are not going to be the sun and the stars. Like, I'm sorry. Vanja didn't mention that that's why he stopped talking to her, But apparently, she gave him a talking to when they didn't talk. He didn't appreciate that, and he said it. He was like, yeah, I called her needy, but I didn't hang up on her. Vanja's like, yes, you did hang up. So then they have this back and forth about whether or not they hung up. I do believe that he was probably, like, short and cold with her in that phone call, but he was upfront about the fact that he called her needy. I don't see why he would lie about whether or not he hung up. He seems like a bit of a straight shooter. It doesn't make sense why Sean asked in this moment, but Sean was like, yeah, how was the sex between you two? And Vanja was like, it was great. Great, it was magical. But also at this point, like, her eyes are welling up. Sean is like, which one of these men, like, confuses you the most? And Vanya's like, both of them are confusing, but I think the Josko of it all, and that's where she fully breaks down, because she's like, I was physical with him, like, that's a big deal for me, and I just feel like I wish that a part of me could take it back. So at this point, everyone's coming at Josko, being like, you made her feel used, like, why would you, like, give up on your relationship like that? Like, and I just think that overall, maybe it's because everyone's on TV. People break up every day. I think that these reactions to Vanja being dumped are, like, a bit much. I don't care so much about the fact that she was dumped. I do care about people being a-holes to her or being misleading or manipulative. I do care about those things that happened. But people breaking up, it happens every day. You are grown. I know that heartbreak sucks, but, like, you can't let it run your life. And I know that, like, connections, you can't necessarily, like, measure them by timelines, but these relationships were so short. They're a little blip in your lifetime, in your experience. So, like, don't give these people so much power, So seeing her, like, bawl in front of them, I'm like, Vanja, pick yourself up. So while everyone is attacking Josko, Josko is like, you guys, like, I respectfully disagree. My intention was never to make her feel used. In fact, we took our time with intimacy. We didn't just jump to it like you guys think. When we were in Croatia, we didn't do anything like that. It didn't happen until sometime later when I came to America. Josko is like, I didn't go in expecting to break up with her. Like, that wasn't ever the intention. But I also didn't realize that my kid would be, like, crying over me. And I'm like, Josko, that's strange, because kids do cry and, like, you are their only parental figure. But then again, I'm like, he's a first-time dad. It sounds like his child is still pretty young. I've heard that parental guilt is real. So I'm like, maybe he thought that he was ready to embark in a long distance relationship, but then he realized, actually, if this is going to require my kid crying and me having to listen to it and having this heartbreak, it's just not worth it. And again, his child comes first. But then this speech takes a bit of a turn. I think he's going along the lines of, I'm not using her. And, like, the question about, like, how their intimacy was, because Sean had asked that and he couldn't, like, get a word in just yet. So then he, like, pivots and, like, yeah, I mean, our Schmeck's life, like, we only did, like, 1 or 2 positions, but, maybe because I was too big for her, maybe she was too small for me. I don't really know the reason, but, like, it was magical. I loved it. And everyone's like, ha! That wasn't necessary to disclose. And I would feel away if I was Vanja, and she definitely does. She's like, that wasn't necessary to share. It was definitely out of pocket, because She's here crying about how it's a big deal for her to take that leap. The last thing that she wants is to feel exposed in front of these people that are ready to judge her, you know? And so here is where we step into real murky waters, okay? Because Vanya's like, well, since you want to be so classy and share a schmeck's life, then I should share that you recorded me without my consent. Yeah, he recorded us while we were having schmecks. And of course, everyone's like, oh, and y'all know how I feel about consent on this channel. If it is not eager consent, you do not have it. Do not take liberties. So Vanya found out about it because he showed it to her. He was really proud of showing it to her. The reason he was proud of showing it to her is because they apparently had already discussed doing it. In no way to defend him because this was not right to do, but because they had a conversation about it before, he was like, oh, like, we're in the heat of the moment, like, let me do it and then like show you how sexy you look. Because we're adults, like we know how that thing can go. But before you turn on a camera, which is risky, I don't recommend. Before you turn on a camera, you gotta let the person know, baby, are you okay? Like with me, or like make it obvious that you're reaching for like something to give a pointer of like this is about to go down, or like stop me before you're unready. He did not do that. It sounds like she was, in the moment, did not notice. And then after he showed her, she had a horrible reaction. He was mortified, like seeing her reaction because he thought that they were, vibing, and he realized that he made a mistake and he apparently apologized in the moment. There are people that do this and intend to hurt, intend to harm, intend to share. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt that because they had that conversation, he thought that it was okay. But again, she did not give you eager consent in that moment. People can say yes before and then say no in this moment, and they're allowed to change their mind. Vanya was probably just like, excited and wanted to like talk a big game, but she is not really into it, or probably needed a little more time to get to that. It was not fair for him to do that without her fully being on board. So this whole time, Niles cannot stop talking. He is on Josko's neck. There's a point that he kind of like overtalks Josko, and Josko's like, be respectful. And Niles is like, you're not going to talk to me about respect. And I'm just like, Niles, I get it. We are all angry. But Josko is very like short. So I feel like the more people interrupt, the less we actually hear from him. So I need you to leave this to Sean, or leave it to Vanya. Vanya's crying because she's like, this is what happens to me. Like, this is why I'm single, because I feel like I take these steps with people and then I end up hurt. Like people can't be trusted. I don't want to say that Vanya is the problem because I think that sometimes people just suck. But every single relationship scenario that she's told us has been super traumatic. And if I were her, I too would take a break from dating because I'm like, there is something about me that is attracting these people. Like, what is it about me that's making these people think that they can come here and F-ish up, Because I think Vanya is great. And yeah, some people may be like, oh, she's annoying. She's going to be amazing to the right person. But Vanya is truly heartbroken and feels exposed and vulnerable in this moment. And Sean prompts Josko to apologize, like while everyone's on set. Even if his intention was not to be shady, it does not come off well at all. And he does apologize to her and he tells her like, you are amazing and I hope that you find happiness. And it seems like it's a sincere apology. He owns up to the fact that like no one should feel that way but as you guys recall, Vanya had already had a second trip to see Josko planned, but they had broken up. And so everyone's like, oh, so like, did you see Josko when you went back? And she said, yeah, we went around like a few places, but that's about it. And everyone's like, oh, so of course he saw her because he wanted to sleep with her. And it's like, she's a grown woman. This man broke up with her. Yes, people suck sometimes, but also she is not a child. She is a consenting woman that is using her own grown-up money to fly over there to see a man that already broke up with her. Sometimes we really need to take responsibility and prevent our own heartbreak. And or you have to be able to switch gears and be like, listen, I love Croatia. I already bought this ticket. I'm going to go and I'm going to have me a good time. It's not a body count because I've already been with this man. YOLO. Whatever you need to say to yourself to feel good. Instead, Vanya went out there thinking that she could reconcile with him. It did not happen. The most that happened was like a makeout session. Of course, everyone's attacking Josko, being like, of course you would go out to see her. But plot twist, I guess she had gone to like a different town and then went back to his, and she tried to see him, and he actually said, no, I do not want to see you again, because they already had that makeout session. So he's like, clearly the physical attraction is still there. If I see you again, it's going to go further, and I already know how you are with physical stuff. So I don't want to confuse things. That's honorable, because someone else would have been like, give me it. So all that to say, I really don't think that he is like this huge villain. I think that he made a terrible mistake. But yeah, I feel bad for Vanya. I want her to have love, but at least she has the show, and they're definitely going to bring her back for the single life. I feel it. I feel it in my bones. But yeah, I'm just watching her cry, and I'm just like, Vanya, don't give these people the benefit of seeing you cry. You need to hold your head up high. People break up every day, and I feel like you are that much closer to finding the person that's the right fit. I think the worst thing is to stay together and force it and feel unwanted. Like, what a gift that these people eliminated themselves from your path when they did. Let's move on to Veah and Sunny again, because this is the Rory segment, okay? They play back the scenes of Veah's travel day, and it's funny because in these later episodes, I'm just like, Sunny, you are so crusty, you are so scummy. But I was reminded at how angry I was at Veah in the beginning of this, because she was truly just being so shady. And so, of course, everyone's like, yeah, Veah, like, that's so shady. You don't respect your man, this and that. Sean is like, Veah, why was it important for you to bring Rory and no one else? She claims that it was timing, that no one else could take the trip at the time. I'm just like, yeah. That was scripted AF. That was intentional, because you knew, and the producers knew, that this would be salacious. And there's a particular picture that they showed of Veah and Rory on the airplane, and they're like, like friendly. This was the picture that Sunny saw on Veah's phone, so that's why they like flashed it. And Brian and Adnan are just like dissecting it. They're like, yeah, you guys were cuddling. You looked really comfortable. You were probably sleeping on his lap. And Veah's like, I didn't do that. That's not what's pictured. And like, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I thought that was uncalled for them to do all that. But Veah, just as girls, even if you don't love Rory in that way, there is like a closeness between you because you have history. You would definitely sleep on his lap. If you're gonna fly with him to meet your boyfriend, you definitely have the audacity to be sleeping on his back. You just give me that vibe. So they bring Rory out on camera, and I'm wondering if he could hear everything while he was in the weight room, because everyone was just like going in on his character. Like, what kind of man would put himself through that? Adnan's messy behind is like, so Rory, why did you break up with Veah? Which is like no one's business, I feel like. I think that we've heard enough about, her miscarriage and all the traumatic stuff that happened that was around the time where they broke up. Rory keeps it classy, and he's like, we just found that we would be better off as friends. Definitely not like a scandalous answer, but also like, Veah's with Sunny now. And they, of course, like really want to catch him like slipping. So they keep asking him questions like, what do you think about Sunny and Veah's relationship? Do you think they're going to last? And he says, he's like, initially I had my doubts, but ultimately I want her to be happy. And he repeats again, he's like, I was only there to make sure that she was safe. I didn't want her to get kidnapped, because as we know, Veah lacks street smarts. Sometimes I feel like she just lacks common sense. And he is someone that's close to her in her life. And he was like, well, I want her to be okay. I was one of the people that was like, this is so inappropriate. If you couldn't go with someone else, you need to change the timing of your trip, because it's not going to go well. And everyone on stage is like, you put these two in a horrible position. And I agree. I feel like you can't claim that you want them to be best of friends and then set them up in a way that is setting them up for failure. And it's funny because no matter what Rory says, everyone is adamant that he is madly in love with Veah. And so Adnan is like, so Rory, how do you feel about being the spare tire? And Rory's like, that's not what this is, man. To which Adnan is like, Veah, you gotta pick one because obviously you love these two guys, you need them in your life, and they're both fighting for you, but that's not right. You gotta pick one. Veah is apologetic about hiding things from Sunny. I think she sees it back and sees that, like, the optics of this are not great, but she stands 10 toes and she's like, I would still bring Rory with me. Like, I don't regret that. But again, there is nothing that she could say to change anyone's mind. Everyone's like, yeah, Veah is still madly in love with Rory and they're gonna get back together eventually. Veah's like, y'all need to leave me alone. Me and Rory are just friends. Actually, me and Sunny are already past this drama. We're all friends and like it is what it is. But as she's saying that, I'm like, Veah, speak for yourself because Sunny does not look over it. Then they go off on a tangent about the fact that like Rory was being messy and writing haha on like Sunny's pics, to which Sunny viewed as him like patronizing him, basically like a bit of a pissing contest. But it's just that Sunny likes to take a lot of selfies because, you know, he has beautiful eyes, and Rory thought that it was, I guess, not masculine to take a bunch of selfies. It was a stupid tangent, but anyway, that's it for them in this episode. I think that they're gonna bring up the religion drama again next episode from the teaser, but that's it for this episode. Let's move on to the final segment between Loren and Faith, which I thought things took a turn. So they bring out Esther again and we see her backstage and she's ready to go to war for Loren. She feels like everyone's attacking him. People are definitely going hard on him. People are definitely showing their disgust for what he embodies, but I wouldn't say that it's unearned. So they play back the scene where Faith's friends catch Loren flirting with a drag queen outside of the drag show. And he's trying to explain the confusion of the night, which doesn't help him. But he's like, oh, I wasn't flirting with a drag queen. There was, you know, a younger woman that was flirting with me. And, you know, he was basically trying to explain that story that we've heard before. But he can't finish a sentence because Niles and Joe and just everyone keep like cutting him off and like focusing on words that he's using, really just breaking apart. Like he said something like, oh, like they caught me or things like that. And they're like, oh, so you admit that you were doing something wrong. And he's like, I started to feel a little bad. But Esther's over here like, you guys don't like him, so there's nothing that he can say to sway you. And Niles won't stop talking and he cuts her off and he's like, Esther, like you might as well stay out of this because you're not making yourself look good. And she's like, how? Because I'm defending my friend? Y'all are attacking him. And here's the thing with that whole scene breakdown. I think Loren is inappropriate by nature, yes. But I think that Faith's friends didn't like him, rightfully so. And so anything that he did, they were going to pick apart. He could have been talking to a shadow. They would have been like, yeah, he's flirting with so-and-so. And there was alcohol in the mix. I really do think that that whole thing was blown out of proportion. And I think that that's what he was trying to explain. But I think that Loren also goes off on tangents that don't add anything to the story and make him look worse, because he's laughing through it. So Adnan is like, you know what? Like, this isn't gonna work between you and Faith. Faith wants a man. And this is what I'm talking about, tangents. Loren's like, well, I am a man. Well, actually, I have one testicle, so maybe... No one needs to know that. And like, what does that add to the story? Like, people... There are plenty of men with one testicle. Like, what is the reason? So at this point, Esther and Niles are like yelling back and forth, and I love Niles, but I need him to shut up. I need him to let Loren finish his statement. And also, you are pulling in Adnan. And I had your back when Adnan was trying to hijack your segment. This isn't about you. And the only way we're going to get answers is if we let the person that's the focal point have their moment. I don't like Loren either, but we got to call it how we see it. You are pulling in Adnan. And the thing about Esther, I've said it. She enables Loren. She really does. But putting myself in her position, I too would defend my friend in front of everyone. And then I would correct him in private. I think that's the disconnect. I'm not too sure that she corrects Loren in private. But hell yeah, I'm going to defend my friend in front of everyone. I'm not going to let you talk sideways like that in front of me. And also, she knows Loren, and I think that while, again, I'm not saying it's not earned, I think that it is hard to have like 10 people yelling at you, telling you how disgusting you are, how you're not worth anything. Like, he's smiling through it, but that is hard. So Faith is crying. Faith has not stopped crying this entire tell-all. And I'm also like, Faith, I had sympathy for you. And then you went back to him, and you really had no reason to go back because he's not in person with you. So it's not like he's posing a physical threat where he's holding you hostage and like you can't get out of it. I understand that emotionally and mentally there's a tie there, and I understand that like she feels like she can't do better, but you just can't keep crying like this when like this is the man you chose. So own it. Stand firm by this decision, you know what I mean? I think seeing the way that everyone's reacting is making her reflect, and she's probably like, oh, maybe all of the things that I found cringe, or maybe all of the things that sent like glaring red alarms in my brain, maybe there's something to that. And Sean asks her, so what, like, why are you crying? Has he apologized to you for everything? And Lauren's like, I have apologized to you. Which Faith is like, yes, he's apologized, but it always ends up in hurt. And at this point, Adnan is heckling. Adnan is like, Faith, why are you there crying like you lost a diamond? You lost Loren. And I was like, I hate that he's so annoying and right. Because like, who are you to tell her that? But again, and so everyone's like, listen, you chose him. We all choose people. If that's who you chose, you got to just stick with it. Like, there's nothing that we can say. It is what it is, right? And then they talk about how Loren, it's just so confusing to me that Loren has money for these trips, but then he doesn't have money for the paperwork to get her here. Don't you guys find that interesting? But he's like, yeah, I'm taking her to Thailand and we're going to have this like beautiful trip together. And yeah, I hope, that we could get married. And everyone, particularly Sean, is like, well, you guys aren't engaged. So what do you mean you plan to get married over there? And he's like, well, that's her prerogative, right? Like she has to make that decision, right? That's something that you talk about. You don't just plop someone and be like, so you want to get married? Faith agrees. She's like, you told me that we were going on vacation. So I'm thinking we're doing vacation. I'm not there to get married with you. Like, that's not going to happen. And he's like, oh, well, that's something that we could talk about. You can think about it. She's like, I'm telling you we're not there for marriage. So then they ask her, so like, what is the point of this trip, And so at this point, they're like putting the pressure on Faith. They're like, you need to decide what you're going to do. And Faith is like, well, it isn't realistic for us, like I don't foresee a future. So everyone's like, okay, so what are you going to do? And you could see that she really doesn't want to cut the cord in this moment. She really is going around the whole breakup situation, but it sounds like that's where they're headed. But she won't just pull the plug just yet. Personally, I wouldn't be mad at Faith if she's like, well, I would like to break up after Thailand. Like, I would love to go to Thailand and have this moment. We all love a vacation. But as she's talking, Loren seems dumbfounded at the fact that this has been her journey emotionally, which baffles me because I feel like when we saw them in the Philippines, she made it clear that she was struggling with all of the things that he has put her through. So after he brings up the marriage thing, everyone is pushing her like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And the episode ends with her being like, it's a no. Like, so it's over. Let's see how long that lasts. But I think that it was for real because in the next episode, we see Loren break down in the green room with Vanja. So that's that. Also, you guys, part 4, which is the last tell-all, looks juicy because we find out that Brian's new victim, aka his new girlfriend, this is a woman that he met in Brazil the same day Ingrid left him. So Ingrid left him in the afternoon. By the evening, he was on the apps and he met this new victim. Crazy. It also seems like they're gonna rehash the whole Joe and his ex that's also in his friend group situation. And I don't know what's gonna happen. All I see in the preview is that Joe leaves the tell out early. He's like, I don't want to deal with this. Like, and someone says that he got caught in a lie. So juicy. I cannot wait. Also, I'm not recapping it, but this episode, like I mentioned, was cut short. It was only an hour because the second hour, that's usually part of the show, they went straight into pillow talk. And in pillow talk, it's usually just old cast members. Instead, they brought out Vanja and Niles. So, usually in pillow talk, you talk crazy trash about these people. I caught a glimpse of it, but it was just so funny seeing them trash Vanja and Niles in their face. And then in the next week's pillow talk, it looks like Brian is gonna be there, and we all hate that man. So if you don't usually watch pillow talk, I definitely think that it's worth to do. But as always, I look forward to reading your comments because things really picked up, so I can't wait for us to get into it together. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.